I've actually started 2 boutiques before, and the second one I started, I done with hardly any money. It was like £300. And it was profitable within like its first 3 weeks. And the reason why was because I'd done it with such a small amount of investment. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jade. I am a full-time marketer and a side hustle addict. I have 4 side hustles, 2 boutiques, which I'm going to be talking about a bit today, an Instagram page which I've monetized, and this lovely channel which is all about helping everyone start or level up their side hustles. So today's video is a really important one, I feel, because I think there's a lot of people out there, and you might be one of these people, who have always wanted to start a boutique or an online store of some kind, but you've been put off by the idea that it's going to require huge amounts of investment and loads of money. And that's put you off, which meant that maybe you've never gotten around to doing it. And I feel like these kind of videos are super important because they give you really useful tips on how you can actually start your boutique journey and do it without making loads of money. Or not making, you want to make loads of money. Do it without spending loads of money. And I've run 2 boutiques. I have a swimwear boutique and a bag boutique. And the first one I invested like £800 into it, and I did not need to spend that much at all. I made so many mistakes with that first one, and I learnt loads from that first one, and that meant that my second one, which is the bag boutique, which I launched in September, I managed to do it on hardly any money at all, and yeah, I just learnt some really cool tips and tricks to avoid spending loads of money in the beginning. So those are the tips and tricks which I'm going to explain to you and share with you guys today. So I hope it's really helpful. So yeah, let's get started. First thing, or one of the first things that you're going to want to do, is purchase a domain name. There are a few different sites you can use to purchase a domain name. For those of you who don't know, your domain name is literally what your website is. So you know your URL, and it's www. Mine is Lilo London. Like, that's Lilo London is the domain section, and the .co.uk also makes up part of your domain. There's a few different websites you can use for this. I'm always going to recommend GoDaddy because I've used them for any business or side hustle that I've ever used in the past. Their whole website's just really easy to use. It's really simple and straightforward. There are a few different ways of paying. You can either pay monthly, which I think is what I do, or you can pay per year. Some domain names are going to be more expensive than others. Obviously, I've actually been really fortunate in that all the domain names that I've purchased have been okay, and they've not been too expensive. It's kind of like, it's a bit random which ones are really expensive and which ones aren't. So I'd actually recommend going on a site like GoDaddy and looking at what's available when you're going through the process of picking your name, because there are so many stores out there, not too many, you know, abundance mindset, there's enough for everyone, but like there's a lot of stores out there and there's a lot of websites. So loads of domain names have already been taken. And sometimes I wonder, like, are we going to get to the stage where there's none left? You know, maybe I'm just being stupid. So in terms of legal requirements, you're going to want to set yourself up as a limited company or a sole trader. I know the terminology is slightly different. I think it's LLC in America, but what they basically mean is the same. So this kind of deserves a video in its own right, and I'm by no means an expert on it. So what I'm going to do is link to a video where another YouTuber talks about the different types of companies you can set up and what that means legally. So that you guys can make a really informed decision about how you want to register your business. When you register your company, you will have to pay a very small fee. It's usually like £10 to £20. And then there's reoccurring fees what pop up every now and again, in addition to things like your taxes. So those are also things to bear in mind. But in terms of your upfront costs, you want to budget about 20 quid to set up your business. I also know that in America you need a wholesale license. I don't, again, I'm going to link to a video what explains this in more detail, because in case you haven't noticed from my accent, I'm British, so I'm not that familiar with the different rules and stuff what's in place in America, but I know you also need a wholesale license to start a boutique over there. So the next thing, and probably the most important and exciting and nerve-wracking part, is the stock. I probably shouldn't say the stock's more important than the legal stuff, because realistically it's not. But like, when you're starting a boutique, the stock is it's the crux of what you're doing, right? It's the main thing and the main part of what you're doing. And it's really exciting. It's also super difficult to get right because there are a lot of different wholesalers out there, and not all of them sell quality product. It's also difficult because there's a lot of trial and testing. You have to kind of do your own research into what you think is going to sell well, but really you don't know until you start selling. And you want to make sure that you stay as lean and kind of nimble and flexible as possible. So if you purchase something and it's not selling out, yes, you bought enough so that you can sell one in every size or two in every size. But if it doesn't sell out, it's not the end of the world if you now need to switch and purchase something else. You still obviously want to carry on selling the thing what isn't selling out, or maybe you want to donate it because we're not about wasting clothes. But you can still switch to a different product line and bring something else in if you for you to not have that much stock on site, and therefore not spend too much stock before you start getting sales in. So the primary method of this is drop shipping, which you've probably heard. There's like loads of different drop shippers on YouTube who have made loads of money from like selling random things. The thing what I would flag if you're going to do drop shipping for an online boutique is you really need to purchase every single item that you're going to be selling and purchase it for yourself and have it delivered to yourself. You need to see what the quality is like, you need to try it on, you need to see what the packaging is like, how long does the shipment and the delivery actually take. You want to test all those things. Don't just blind put your trust in a supplier that they're going to send the exact same thing what they've put on their photo and it's going to be great quality and it's going to arrive when they say it is, because you really don't know. I've also just realised I've not actually explained what dropshipping is. So if you don't know what dropshipping is, but you don't carry any of the stock. So for example, if I'm selling a pair of jeans which is being sold on by another supplier, someone purchases those jeans from my website and I forward that order onto the supplier and the supplier fulfills it for me. So I don't see any stock at any point. The supplier just sends the stock straight to the customer, which is why I'm saying it's so important for you to test and review and quality control all of the products you're selling, because you're not actually going to get to physically touch and see the products before you're sending them to your customers. Another tip when it comes to stock and keeping your costs down, and this is something what I do, to avoid carrying too much stock at one time, I will put those items up on my site, especially if they're a new line item. I'll put them up, test the market, and then I'll put a pre-order option. So there's an app that on Shopify, if you have Shopify, there's an app you can get, which I'll link to in the bio, which basically allows you to have this function on your website. So once my items have sold out in those size, it switches the add to cart button to a pre-order now button, which has a longer lead time. And what it basically means is that it gives me an opportunity to still collect orders for items which I don't have in stock, and then I order them from the supplier when those orders come through, and then once they're delivered I ship them off to the customer. Last tip on stock, sorry, because I know I've gone on about stock quite a bit, but it's really important, it's the most expensive part. Always factor in two things: delivery, so how much a wholesaler charges for delivery. If you purchase from overseas, sometimes this can be a substantial amount, and you need to work out, if they're charging 50 quid for delivery, how much money does that actually add on to the cost of each of those items that you've purchased. Do you see what I mean? So if you spent £50 on delivery, but you've only bought 5 items, all of those items actually carry a £10 delivery fee each, which is a lot, and you need to factor that into how you're going to then price your items and if it's even worth it. So make sure you factor in things like that, and also import fees, which will be applicable to you if you're importing from another country. Okay, enough about stock, let's talk about photography. This is also a really good one and really interesting one, and I think I'm going to have some useful tips for you guys, at least I hope I will. So with photography, again, this is something what could cost you a lot of money, but there are a few different strategies you can look into before you just go all out and purchase hire a studio, get a photographer and hire some models. There are so many things you can do before you get to that stage. So the first one, and the easiest one, is contacting your suppliers and asking if they have any images that you can use. So these are basically what I will refer to as stock images. I have done this, and I still do this on some of my boutiques. When a supplier has really high quality images of the product that you're buying, it's a really viable, cheap, good alternative. What you want to make sure is two things. You want to make sure that the photos actually belong to the supplier, and this should be on the website, and if it's not, then you need to ask them. And you need to make sure that the quality is really good. The main thing what I'm going to flag with this route is that if you are using images that from a supplier, and it's a popular supplier for boutiques, you will find that other boutiques will be using the same images, and it becomes harder for you to differentiate yourself from them. So flat lays is another really cool alternative to purchasing professional, high quality, expensive photos, right? And what flat lays basically are, I'll put like a little link or a little photo to my left, is when you're taking photos of products from a high up level and the products are laid flat. And there's a few different things I use for these. So I purchased backdrops, I'll link to them below, and you could basically, they're just different table effects. So I've got like a marble one and stuff, and it looks like it's on a really high quality service. So I purchased backdrops. I use my ring light, which I use for YouTube. I'll link to that below as well. My boyfriend has a DSLR camera, which we use, but you can also easily use your iPhone or whatever phone you have. And I use all those things to take photos of my swimwear. And that's actually the bulk of my photography and my product photography on my swimwear boutique. So that's a really good option. It's not going to work for like clothing and stuff, but it will work for things like accessories and swimwear. Next strategy for photography is to take photos of yourself. You don't need a model, you can get in them. I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here because I have purposely not like modeled my clothing. So I'm not the model on any of my clothing for Lino London. But that's because it's swimwear, and that makes me a bit like, eh. Because I would literally just be in my swimwear. And I don't know, I don't think I'm there yet where I'm going to be the one to be modelling my swimwear. But there are loads of boutiques, really successful boutiques, which the models for all of the clothes are the CEOs and the CEO's friends, and it looks amazing. And then one thing which I want to flag, if you're going to use any of those methods that I talked about, especially if you're using the stock images or the flat lays, one way to really bring your product to life is to use influencers and to feature their photos on your website. This is a great option because influencers, there's so many amazing influencers out there who will work with you on a gifted basis, especially when you explain to them that you're a new business or you're a new brand. So you can gift your products out, it comes at really small cost to you, and they'll take incredible photos of your products on. And as long as you're really upfront about how you want to use those photos, they'll let you use them on your website and in your promotional materials. So that's definitely something to look into as well. Okay, so next, let's talk about your graphics and the different assets that you're using. So when I say this, I'm talking about things like your logo. If you're going to be doing any ads, which I'll talk about in a minute, there might be some creative work behind those. There might be some different bits and pieces that you want to have on your store, just anything that's kind of design related. I'm quite fortunate in that I taught myself how to use a lot of Adobe Suite when I was like 14 and I was in IT class and I used to get bored, so that's what I used to do. So whilst I can't do it to professional standard, I'm able to do a lot of the basics, so I can do all my logo and stuff myself. But I've recently been, brought on to Canva a bit late to the party, and it is an incredible resource for anyone who's not familiar with like Adobe or any of those design suites, or even if you are familiar with the design suites and you can't always be bothered with all the faff of them, because Canva basically allows you to do everything that you would have done on Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever, but in a far more streamlined and easy to use way. It's really simple. I'll put a link to it below if you've never used it before, and I 100% recommend it. When it comes to logo design, you might want to get professional, for which you can use a website like Fiverr, or reach out to your network and see who's out there, because you'll be surprised. Like, you probably know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows how to use Photoshop. Or maybe you just know someone straight away, you don't need to go through all those levels. But you probably do, and it's always worth asking. Like, there's no shame in asking for help, Okay, then there's web hosting, which is one of those costs which you can't get away from. It's just gonna happen. There's a few different sites you can use. I'm going to do a video on like the pros and cons of each of them. Shopify, which is the one which you probably have all heard of, that's my favorite one. As I mentioned, that's what I use for everything. It's probably one of the more expensive ones in terms of the pricing, because the lowest or like the cheapest package is $29. So I'm pretty sure when I pay for it, that works out to like £24. And then it goes up in cost depending on kind of what you want from it. But from a beginner's point of view, you're looking at $29. Okay, and then the final one, actually, there might be a couple more I want to talk about. Advertising. So advertising, when you're just starting out, you're going to be looking at smaller and like different forms of advertising. You're not exactly going to go out there and get a billboard. You might, in which case, like, good for you, boo. Proud of ya. But most of us can't do that straight away. So you want to be looking at advertising platforms which allow you to really manage how much you're spending and which allow you to spend a really small amount to start off with. So things like Facebook ads, and for those of you who don't know, Facebook ads include Instagram ads because they own Instagram. So things like Facebook ads which allow you to advertise on Facebook, Instagram, stories, feed posts, marketplace, etc. And you can literally start from a few pounds per day. Another platform which allows you to manage and monitor your costs like that is Google Ads. So that's basically when you go onto Google Ads, when you go onto Google search, you search for something and the first few results will come up, and they normally look a bit different, like they're highlighted a bit differently. Those are ads. So that's when a company has bid on a certain selection of keywords in the hopes that their ad gets shown to someone who's going to purchase an item from their store. And then the last form of advertising, which I recommend when you're just starting out, is influencer marketing, of course. As I mentioned before, like there are so many amazing influencers who will produce really high quality content for you and have a really great engaged audience, and will do that on a gifted basis. Two other really small things what I want to flag before I wrap up this video. The first is if you're going to purchase any form of cloud accounting, oh, it doesn't have to be cloud, but cloud accounting basically means it's like a website which hosts all your accounting, and you can do all your bookkeeping on it, track all your receipts, your outgoings, your profit and your loss, blah, blah, blah. There's websites like QuickBooks, Xero, etc., which will offer their services to you, and you might have to pay £5–10 a month. I actually have an accountant for Lilo London now, so which is longer, but once you have a good template, it can work really well, and also it's free. So I'm going to do, again, I keep on saying I'm going to do a whole video on these things, but I'm new, I'm just starting out, so you've got to bear with me as I create this content. But I'm going to do a video on the spreadsheets and how I use them, and I'm probably going to package them up and make them available to you guys as well. And then the other thing that I wanted to flag, which a lot of people don't mention, is if you like hit the ground running with your boutique and you do a whole launch campaign and strategy and you just get sales off the bat straight away, getting loads of sales in, amazing, like that is an incredible achievement. What you need to realize is that you're not going to get the money from those sales for a few days. So if you do a huge launch campaign, which I recommend, and you have a delivery policy where you basically need to be fulfilling orders within the first 24 to 48 hours of those orders coming through, you need to realize that you're going to be spending money on all of that shipping straight away when you don't have any of your income yet. Shopify normally take like 2, maybe 3 days to send your money through. PayPal, when you've just started a new PayPal account, they might put holds on your money for months. So just bear that in mind, that there's probably going to be a while before you start getting your actual income through. So you might need to be spending a couple £100 on shipping on your first few days if you do suddenly get loads of orders. I think that's it for me. If you're interested in other things about starting your own boutique, monetizing your Instagram account, starting side hustles, subscribe to me because that's what all of my content is about. Follow me on Instagram, it's WeSideHustle, and do all those engagement things for me, like the video, comment, share, etc. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for listening.